Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven, and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories, and our first story of the day is by Reckless Commenter. Don't ask me again about a refund or you'll get nothing. Okay, I won't. Among 20 or 30 somethings around the world, social dance has become not just a hobby but a community. People routinely travel to other cities and even other countries to attend dance weekends with local dancers hosting visitors. It's a great combination of fun, social connections, and hijinks, and a physical skill that can ratchet up to high intensity. Many such events are organized by professionals who are event organizing rock stars. Other events are fly-by-the-seat-of-their-pants affairs run by amateur organizers who couldn't manage a lemonade stand. This story is about the second kind. An organizer announced a 4-day dance camp in another state with a bunch of instructors. It was a first-time event, but I knew these people from some past events, and it sounded like fun. 4 months before the event, a registration website opened, and the early bird registration cost was like $600. I had the time and 30 single professional income, so I bit the bullet. To be determined event details remained to be determined, which was unusual but not that unusual. More weeks passed. I started periodically emailing the lead organizer asking for updates. Occasionally, I got a vague assurance that it's all good. Other times, radio silence, deepening skepticism. 4 days before the start of the event, I received a message from the lead organizer. Event canceled, something rain damage to the venue. I was disappointed but hardly surprised. Mostly annoyed because United wouldn't change or refund my ticket. When shall I expect a refund? Sorry, we all lost money on the planning of this event. No refunds. What? I started digging. Rain damage looked sketchy because the National Weather Service reported that the whole state had received 1 inch of rain in the past month. I personally knew one of the lead organizer's associates, so I called him up. Yeah, no rain damage. He gave me an earful about months of non-planning. The event had been a mirage. I sent a rather to-the-point email message demanding a refund, and the lead organizer agreed and asked for a few weeks. The refund didn't arrive. More email exchanges led to more promises and more missed dates. Eventually, about 9 months after the scheduled event, I received one last response. Don't ask me about this again, or I won't refund anything. I waited another month, and then, late one evening, something in my brain clicked, and I decided, time's up. Malicious compliance? He doesn't want me to ask him about it again? Okay, I won't. Instead, I visited the main web forum for the stance community and posted my entire experience, backed by facts and dates and quotes. I copied the full, unedited email exchange between me and this organizer, up to and including his last message. I reviewed and tweaked it carefully, repeatedly, making sure that every statement was accurate and fair. I clicked post and went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, my inbox was on fire. The dance community came down on this organizer like a nuclear bomb. Upcoming events scratched him from their rosters. People posted about some of the slimy things this organizer had done previously in past events. Students and, I was later told, some close friends dropped him. Best part, a few pro-organizers of other top-tier events publicly responded, "This is not how our community operates and not how we treat people. And to prove it, we're offering Reckless Commenter a complimentary pass to our events." The lead organizer initially posted an indignant reply, but quickly realized the gravity and hopelessness of his situation and shifted gears. He called me, first time actually communicating with me outside of email, pleaded for forgiveness, and promised a full refund, sniveling a bit about needing to take a cash advance from a credit card. Full refund arrived about a week later. For years afterwards, I periodically received messages from people reading, "Hey, this organizer wants to do an event with us, but we heard something about a bad experience you had with him. Can you tell us what happened?" Sure, here's a link to the forum post that documents what went down. I deleted it about 5 years after the event because I don't believe in ruining people for life. That last line kind of has me thinking. So let's say you bought a ticket to an event. and that person ended up scrapping the entire event and trying to keep all the money people paid for the tickets. Do you believe that that person should be blacklisted from that entire community or the organizing scene permanently? Or do you think that there is a certain amount of time where, after they've been blacklisted for so long, they should be able to get another chance? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by TacoCat0927. Punish me by making me do carpentry with absolutely no training or guidance? Okay, can do. I joined a sorority my freshman year of college. Everything was just peachy until my senior year. I had a huge workload and was trying to graduate on time, so I didn't have to take summer classes. So my time was very limited and most of it spent in the library studying. During that time, I was absent from quite a bit of mandatory sorority meetings. Seriously, there would be like 2 a day and it was getting ridiculous, not to mention time-consuming, so I stopped going to the ones that interfered with my class and study schedule. Well, since I wasn't attending meetings, I was put on probation for my sorority and was told I had to pay a fine of $20 for every missed meeting. Now, I knew there was no documentation that I ever signed that said they had the right to fine me for missing meetings. Sure enough, I asked for proof in the sorority bylaws and there was no passage that said they could fine me for missing meetings. They could impose fines for other things, but not this. So I refused to pay and thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong, of course. The next day, the sorority president and chapter leader sat me down and told me that since they can't fine me, they can find some other way for me to be punished for missing meetings. I just rolled my eyes and asked them what they had in mind. They told me that I could get off probation. I really didn't care that I was on probation in the first place, but whatever, if I would help make improvements around the sorority house, specifically by filling in the holes left by nails, screws, door handles with spackle, or whatever the heck you call the stuff you use to fill in holes in walls. Now, normally I would have laughed in their face, but my mind was already forming an idea. They said they would provide the materials, but they said nothing about training me on how to properly do it, or even asking me if I've ever done it before. I just said, if I do this, we're good, right? They agreed. I never asked about being trained, and they never provided any. So I complied with their request and spackled every hole in the walls of the sorority. How much did I use? Well, considering I had no idea what I was doing, it varied from hole to hole. That's what she said. So now instead of holes, there were a variety of different hills and some mountain ranges sticking out of the walls. I provided the finest manual labor that a 21-year-old college student with no formal carpentry training could do, which was absolute crap. I was never spoken to about it, although I'm sure they cursed me up and down behind my back, and about 2 to 3 days later, they had a professional come in to fix my work. Nothing was ever said to me again about missing meetings. I think they just gave up trying to punish me at that point, since I was graduating in like 2 months. I'm not trying to vilify sororities, and I made some amazing friends from that house. But if I were able to do it all over again, I would seriously reconsider going Greek. All I know is the amount of sanding whoever had to do was probably pretty high. Having a ridiculous amount of meetings for what probably amounted to not that much to actually talk about seems like such a weird mandatory requirement anyways. Our next story is by that Duran Duran song, You Have to Choose One Ethnicity. It doesn't matter if you're biracial. A few years ago, I was filling out a form in order to get a work abroad visa. I go down the page, marking the usual basic information. I reach the section where it asks you to indicate your ethnicity. However, it says you can only mark one. Now, for anyone who is biracial, aka has one parent of one race and another parent of another race, this is likely to be one of the many banes of your very existence. For the record, I am half white, half Asian. I look mixed in that I have dark hair and brown eyes. I have a face that's more flat than typical white faces but more dimensional than typical Asian faces, and have more white than Asian shaped eyes. I highly doubt anyone would mistake me for being white, but there's also no way you would think I'm 100% Asian. These details are important. I look at this section of the form and sigh. Fortunately though, it's on paper, so I could just circle both the white Caucasian and Asian categories. I decide to approach the lady at the desk. I explain that my dad is white and my mom is Asian. I'm literally not more of one race than the other. I ask what I should indicate with the hopes that she'll tell me to just indicate both. Instead, she says, just pick the one you fit the most. Internally, I roll my eyes, though I'm very tempted to do it outwardly too, but it's not her fault. So I walk back to my seat. I look at the paper some more. I almost try to just mark both anyway, but since I've asked about it, I'm sure the lady will check. So that's a no-go. After a moment of deliberation, I decide to mark white. Because of course, white people are going to see me as an outsider. Of course, they're going to think I'm going to mark Asian. But why should I? I am literally 50% white and 50% Asian. Picking white over Asian makes no more sense to indicate my racial identity than it does to pick Asian over white. So I'm going to make my point that you can't force me to be the other just to suit whatever the freak you're trying to accomplish by making people choose a single ethnicity. I mark white. I finish filling out the one sheet of paper and then walk back to the lady. I hand it over. She looks over it and sees what I marked for my ethnicity. She gives me a mildly disbelieving look and asks me, "Are you sure that's what you want to choose?" I almost laugh. Instead, I give a very firm yes. There's nothing more she can do, so she files the form away and I wait to be given my next instructions. The OP clarified that there was no option for other on this list, which should have been an option so that they can get around having to pick one or the other. That said, I don't necessarily think there's a huge problem with what happened here, all the way up until the lady gives the mildly disbelieving look and asks, "Are you sure that's what you want to choose?" It's definitely an inconvenience to force somebody to have to pick one or the other. That said, OP knows their background. Who is this lady at the counter to stop and say, "Are you sure that's the one you want to pick?" And it wasn't even about your ethnicity, it was just about what you look like to her. And our final story of the day is by Serrano de Maniac. Keep digging until I get back. Long ago, in a land a couple hundred miles away, my father wanted to dress up the front corner of our property with a section of decorative fence and a few rose bushes. Myself, being a tween-age boy and not having the good sense to be somewhere else, was drafted to help him one hot July Saturday afternoon. We brought the new fence post to the corner of the lot, along with a shovel and a post hole digger, and set about the task. It was a long, slow process as the clay-heavy soil was fairly dry and hard-baked, and as such, each hole was taking the better part of 20 minutes to dig. This definitely wasn't on the list of things I wanted to spend my afternoon doing, but such is life. Right about the time we started on the final hole, Mom yelled to Dad from the house, announcing that he had a phone call. As these were the days before mobile phones, Dad headed off to the house and instructed me to keep digging until I get back. Lucky for me, this hole went a bit different than the first four. About the moment he got to the door of the house, I busted through the clay layer into much sandier soil, where I could get a couple of inches of soil in one scoop rather than perhaps a quarter inch per scoop. Easy peasy. Now, I was a good kid. I didn't cause trouble of any significant variety. I got good grades, and I helped around the house when I got caught unawares. But seizing an opportunity for malicious compliance was definitely among my personal strengths. So I kept digging and digging. Post holer in, squeeze, post holer out, dump, repeat. Dad wasn't on that phone call very long, but I made good time, and by the time I saw him at the door coming back, I was quite literally putting the post hole digger all the way into the ground to the point where the tips of the handles were just below the surface of the ground. And I couldn't really dig because I couldn't open up the handles to squeeze the digging end any longer. So if I had to guess, I'd say that hole was about 5 feet deep.
How's it going?
I think it's deep enough now.
Let's put the post in and check.
Me, huge grin while he stoops over to pick up the post. Dad proceeds to drop the post in the hole. All the way in the hole. See, these posts were maybe hip height when installed, probably about 5 feet long themselves. So there's Dad, momentarily struck speechless, amazement washing across his face. He looks at me. "You told me to keep digging until you got back," shrugs. Dad says, "You little crap," and laughs. Dad had to go grab the post with his fingertips and pull it back out of the hole, and it wasn't but a few seconds of work to refill the hole to the proper depth. And to this day, he loves telling the story of his maliciously compliant son. Honestly, I'm thinking about if it was me and my dad in this situation, and he'd probably just be pissed off at me. But honestly, it does sound like a really fun experience to have between a kid and their dad. They did tell you to keep on digging. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.